tower down, unwind the tarp until the tarp is fully extended. This will relieve as much spring tension as possible. Remove the bolts connecting the 90-degree elbows to the rear bow. Carefully disconnect the side arms from the rear bow and lower them to the ground. Note the side arms will be under a slight amount of spring tension. Loosen the set screws holding the 4 tarp centering flanges on the rear bow and remove them. Slide the rear bow out of the pocket in the tarp. Now, carefully get into position on the vehicle to access the integrated tarp housing on the tower. Remove the button bolts that attach the tarp to the axle and remove the tarp. You'll note the Roll-Rite aluminum tarp axle is made to accept the tarp bolts along its entire length, in any one of the pre-threaded grooves. To install a new tarp, begin by centering it on the tarp axle and then fasten it down with button head bolts through each tarp eyelet. Roll up a little over 1 wrap of the tarp so that it rotates over, not under, the axle or spool of the integrated tarp housing on the tower. At the rear of the vehicle, thread the tarp bow through the tarp pocket. Slide the tarp centering flanges back onto the rear bow. Reconnect the 90-degree elbows back into the ends of the rear bow by tightening the bolts. Then, reconnect the side arms by tightening the bolts. Position the inside tarp centering flanges against each side of the tarp and tighten the set screws. Position the other flanges to align with the edges of the container or the end caps of the tarp spool if the tarp is wider than the containers. Using the remote or the black box, raise the tower to the highest position and roll up the tarp into the tarp housing. As the tarp gets close to the housing, you will have to adjust the tower to its standard travel or park position in order to fully wind the tarp in. The installation is now complete.